And I was one of the things that was pushing him. I didn't see anybody standing up for Paul and Maggie. Once I realized what he had done and why he had done it, I felt a certain amount of responsibility for that.
The Murdaugh story didn't start with a murder. It started with a boat crash.
Paul, what bridge is this? We're in a boat crash on Arthur Street. We just crashed in a boat. We have someone missing.
I'm Emerson. I'm an investigative reporter, and I've covered the Murdaugh saga from start to finish. Before we go any further, tap subscribe to Criminally Obsessed so you're sure not to miss any of these exclusive interviews or inside looks into this case. Back in February 2019, a drunk and belligerent Paul Murdaugh was driving that boat when it slammed into a bridge, killing 19-year-old Mallory Beach. Mallory's family hired attorney Mark Tinsley to sue the Murdaughs, and when he demanded Alex's financial records, everything began to unravel. Just 3 days before Paul's hearing in that boat crash case, Alex murdered his wife, Maggie, and Paul. That story is back in the spotlight because of the Murdaugh Hulu series.
Somewhere along the way, you became broken. And you've justified it, and he's justified it every step of the way.
And today on Criminally Obsessed, I sit down with Mark Tinsley, the man whose case cracked open the House of Murdaugh.
What was your impression before, if you could take that filter off of everything that we know now, what was your impression of Alec and his family? Was he somebody that you thought was a good guy?
I don't like fake people, right? And I really don't like fake people who think that you can't see that they're fake. And so if he calls you on the phone or returns your call and it's, hey, Bo, hey, can I call you right back? And never calls you back, but he got his ass out of the way. That's not really so much fake, but he acts like, he cares about this relationship or whatever it is, or our friendship or whatever it is, but he doesn't really. It's all about him. And so that's sort of my impression of him. If his interest aligned with yours, yeah, he'd help you. If they don't align with yours, he would not help you or do anything.
So you've got a child, it sounds like sort of the same age as my kids who are coming in and out of colleges right now, and somewhere along the line of the Murdaugh family too. Their kids are a little bit older than ours. But did you kind of know that next generation of the Murdaughs, the Paul and Buster and all those kids?
Yeah. There's a photograph on Facebook somewhere that Paul, when I had a house at Edisto, not too far from Alex's house. Alex had a big ice machine, and so sometimes I'd fill my boat up with ice before I'd go fishing. And I'd gone fishing one morning and caught a lot of fish. And that afternoon, the tide cyclic. So
Sure.
Twice a day, the fish are going to do the same thing on certain times of the year. And so that afternoon we went fishing, and there's a picture of Paul. He's about 7 years old, and I caught a big fish, and he's holding the fish, and he and I are in the picture together. But Alec took the picture. So yeah, I knew him well. I've heard Blanca tell a story that Maggie said about me playing, and I remember vaguely playing Wii with Paul when he was like Wii tennis or Wii. I don't know. It wasn't much.
Whatever we did with Wii.
Yeah, whatever it was. I have a vague recollection of playing with him. But apparently she told that story about me playing video games with Paul.
Yeah, and I don't think that, this is something that I've tried to convey, and I don't know if I could ever really convey it. I mean, I've been here for 20 or so years in South Carolina alone. But it's hard to convey how much the water and the land and the families become part of your psyche when you live here. It is, in my head, and tell me if you agree, kind of a big family in a lot of ways. I mean, you take them for their good and their bad and their ugly.
It's a lot like, the analogy I use most frequently is your high school class. These people you've grown up with, your whole life. It depends on how big your high school was, right? But if it's a couple 300 people, whose sister dated whom, who doesn't like, Joe and everything. And
It's a good
for the
analogy.
most part, you see them all the time, you get along with them, and they are just what they are. But you don't get too wrought up in, because it's so small and you see them and you're stuck with them. You can't really, it's not like in a bigger place where, oh, I'll never see her again. You know.
It's such a good way of putting it, Mark. It's almost, and it reminds me of like those years where it is like that. People can relate to that because it's those years that you get imprinted with people, and it's like, oh yeah, he drives me crazy, but you still go to the oyster roast with him or whatever. You're you are forced by proximity to be hanging.
Yeah.
And, I think that is one of the questions I had for you right off the top. Like when you heard about this horrible boat crash, what was the first thing that ran through your mind?
You know, the first thing that ran through my mind was a lot like when my mother called me and said that a plane had hit the World Trade Tower. I mean, in my mind, it was a little plane, right? And so
Mhm.
in my mind, this boat crash. I remember that Sunday morning getting the call that Paul had been in the boat crash, and somebody was hurt, and then somebody was missing, um, and thinking at first I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I mean, not the missing part. I didn't know about that, but I just thought this is not unusual for Paul. He's wrecked a truck. He. So I knew about these incidents, and that's the first thing that popped into my mind. Well, here's just another thing, and this time he's hurt someone. But then I quickly found out, no, this girl was missing, and I didn't know. I knew people in her family. I didn't
Mhm.
know her. I didn't know her parents. I knew her, a couple of her father's brothers, and I knew some other people. But yeah, it was just, and I was really on the sideline, in terms of it's terrible. And at first you think, well, they're going to find her soon. I didn't really think they would find her alive, but and then it goes on, and I mean, I fish all right in that area. It's a big river and a big flow, and lots of water moves through there.
And so you're like in your head, I would think, kind of mapping out like those days as they're trying to find Mallory while she was missing the Mallory Beach, after she had fallen over or had been thrown all over. Um, yeah, in my head, I can imagine like if it was near the water where I'm in Charleston, I would be kind of in my head thinking, where could she be? Like literally, where could she
Yeah.
be?
So the way my recollection is the way the water runs. If you come from Beaufort, there's a long creek, and it sort of meanders and then goes to Paris Island and makes a hard turn. The main channel that you drive the boat in, and then you turn left, and there's the bridge. But when the tide goes out, it goes out towards the Broad River, which is on the other side of Paris Island. And so, you know, I knew it wasn't far from that bridge because I fished at that bridge to the river. And, I thought they had one tide to find her. And if they didn't find her, then I didn't think they would really find her. And that was, I couldn't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine those 8 days. I can't imagine being a parent on that causeway. I can't
Mhm.
imagine that at any of it. Yeah.
No, I think as a parent, it's like you, especially with how much we let our kids go out on the boats without
Well,
us. I mean, I do. I mean, and honestly, my son can drive a boat better than I can.
sure.
And he would totally agree with that, by the way. But, it seriously, like, as much as my kids were on the water at the same age, I don't remember letting them go out after dark really late, but then I didn't my kids didn't live literally on that, creek, so I don't know
Yeah.
what that was like.
Well, because we flounder gig or we go
Mhm.
shrimping,
Oh, true,
and,
just kidding, yeah, of
and
course they go out for that, right?
yeah, so I've been out there, and there were no lights on the boat. There were running lights on the boat, but if you're on the water down there, there's always ambient light, and so you're better with no lights because you get the reflection of the lights to be able to see, and you just sort of stay between the marsh grass and stay in the middle of the channel. But most of the time that night, the boat was going less than 10 miles an hour. I mean, it's like 85%, almost 90% of the time. It's just right there at the very end where he just really loses it and slams the throttle and never slows down for the last 2 minutes.
And, Mark, that takes me straight to the heart of, and you see it a lot in the Hulu series too, and you can comment on that if you want to, but there was a lot of discussion about who was driving the boat, which would have a huge effect on, right? Well, I don't know if it a huge effect. It was still Alex's boat, but was that something that you were sort of embroiled in with Connor, and Connor Cook was one of the other children on the boat, and whether or not he was driving, and Paul, did we ever get that resolved?
Bro, you like funny. Sit down. My girlfriend gone, bro. Hope he's right in hell.
Paul was driving.
I begged and begged and begged and begged to let me drive.
Well,
Or did it matter?
we got it resolved. No,
Yeah,
I
of course.
could, I mean, the very first call is Paul crashed a boat. Everybody knows that Paul's driving the boat.
Paul, what bridge is this? We're in a boat crash on Arthur Street.
Whereabouts on Arthur Street?
In Arthur Street, the only bridge on Arthur Street.
Are you at the dock?
No, we just crashed in a boat. We have someone missing.
I finally got to the point I grabbed my girlfriend and put her in my lap in the bottom of the boat and was holding on with my eyes closed. The next thing I know, I'm in water and I can't find her, man.
That was a concerted effort that, Alec undertook to keep everybody quiet. And if you don't talk anymore, and law enforcement went along with it. And it's that effort that started the state grand jury investigation. It brought Creighton into the picture and ultimately led to a subpoena going to Palmetto State Bank. And that is in the Hulu series. You hear them talking about that. But the reason why is because in the deposition of the chief DNR officer investigator over the crash, I demonstrated in front of General Counsel for SLED that all this evidence, and that set the ball rolling.
Y'all know Alex Murdaugh?
Oh, yeah, I know that name.
That's his son.
That's so driving the boat.
Good luck.
It certainly did. I mean, I think the reason I bring that up was in the Hulu series, I felt like they kept that murky a little bit, like who was driving the boat. And I was wondering if that bothered you, or if you thought about that, like, well, why didn't they just make it super clear that Paul was driving the boat?
The very first episode bothered me to watch. And other
Tell me why.
I'm not sure. It was not, it wasn't some I'm proud of the things that I did. And I'm glad that I helped the Beach family, but I wouldn't want to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment though that I was involved, it was almost 24/7 full time. And then when we get into, there's a lull, but I mean, I lived every day for years and years, and not just the boat crash case. It was everything. I had to know everything. I knew the Satterfield. I knew, the Plyler case. I mean, every single case I was involved in some form or fashion.
The bank was complicit in every step of the way in enabling Alex Murdaugh to steal and pull this off. You asked about Eddie Smith. Eddie Smith was a check cashing scheme. Eddie Smith was being paid to cash checks, but that money is still out there, and he knows where it is.
You were literally on speed dial with everybody. I mean, you were at the epicenter of this, Mark. These details are so interesting to me, Mark, because I haven't heard some of this ever. And, I think it helps us like set up the, so much of as we're able to kind of, after a few years, process what happened without the urgency that we were in the middle of, That's why why did the Beaches come to you?
At the time, somebody that Renee was close to, his sister-in-law had worked for me at one point in time, and then she was working in Columbia, and very good friends with a lawyer that I'd gone to law school with. And I think that person said, if he'll do it, this is who you need to do it. Because you had to know, I mean, you had to know who the Michael Brock was. You had to, I mean, you had to know who all these people were.
The
And
DNR officers and the law
yeah,
enforcement and the
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so, I don't know that there, I mean, there's probably lots of people out there that could have done it. I don't know if they could do it as, because you had to, like, I can remember in April of 2019, John Monk story comes out on the state paper about the Murdaughs, um, and he texted me about the Satterfield case. Do you know about this? I said, yes, John, I know about that. You should look into that. And it turned out it wasn't what I thought it was, but I knew about it. And you just, because back to our high school analogy, I mean, you live right here, you see those people. I know all kinds of things. And it's, at the beginning, I would think, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with this. And then later I realized everything has something to do with this. And so you just sort of file it all away. And, you get a call from a Carol Gable that they're two PIs talking to Sandy Smith, and they've taken her iPad and broken it. And well, it doesn't have anything to do with me. Well, it turns out it does have to do with this. And so, it's just all these little things. You just had to have your finger on the pulse of everything to understand it, because and I watched your show with Creighton, and because he talked about that roadside shooting, and then what come to find out that the law firm had just fired him. Well, the truth is that right before that, Eric Harriet, Gloria Satterfield's brother, comes to me and says, we didn't get any money. And a whole year before that, I had contacted Eric Bland and said, hey, there's this family. If they call you, there's something there. This is what this is about.
That's really was the genesis for us getting involved on behalf of the Satterfields. Mandy Matney had written an article saying that there was a $500,000 settlement revealed in a court petition in connection with Gloria's death. And so the family obviously didn't get any money from that, and they started asking questions. And Mark Tinsley fortunately called me on the phone and asked whether I would be interested in talking to the family. And that's what got the ball rolling. And we knew from the start, and that the financial crimes was going to be really the hub that would ultimately bring down Alex Murdaugh.
First time I hear about it, that somebody's looking into it, is 2019. Then it comes back in 2020, sort of spring, early summer. And then it's not until really there's a whole lot of media attention on the fact that there was this Satterfield settlement, which we all thought was $505,000. And, and coming into September, August of 2021, after the murders, when Eric Harriet comes, and then I send him to Eric Bland. And so I also knew where Corey Fleming banked. I knew where the trust accounts were. I gave them that information. And, it's like Thursday, Eric sends his letter. Tuesday, Eric calls me and says, you're not going to believe this. We think it's $4 or $5 million. They didn't get a penny.
And this is right after the roadside shooting?
No, this is before. This is just boom, boom, boom. And then
right after the murders, before the roadside shooting.
This is in the days before the roadside shooting.
Okay.
So, like Creighton's point was, we didn't know the law firm had fired him the day before. Well, the truth is that not only had the law firm fired him, we had just discovered the Satterfield money, and we had just discovered, and so all that was coming. It was all coming, and it came, which causes you to think, oh, this is bullshit. That's not what's going on. It was a classic Alec, see somebody's really after me. And then once he gets caught, what does he say? Well, there's life insurance. Well, there was no life insurance, because by then I had a receiver, and we had already started looking for I didn't have the receiver until November, but there was no life insurance.
He didn't spend all that money on drugs. If he wants to be accountable, he wants to be contrite, he ought to tell these people where their money is. That's not going to happen. The same as he's not going to lay in bed at night and think about the wrongs and feel sorry for what he did.
I want to just go one thing in that first series when we were talking about the Hulu series that what kind of took me off guard was, and I understand dramatization and timelines and compression and all that. They explain all of that stuff to us. But why did we have to confuse the Satterfield and the boat crash? Like you actually see Gloria, holding on to Paul after the boat crash.
They find her?
One's still missing. You get these kids to keep their mouths shut, and the parents too.
How bad is this for us?
That was probably my most confusing thing. That may be just on me though. Inside baseball probably know too much, but those were different years, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. There was. I think she died in 2018, and it was. But how do you? I mean, we generally have to tell the story chronologically, and so if you're telling it, I think that the point for me, the point is here's this person who ostensibly means something to you and your family and is close to you and has helped raise your kids, and then you treat them the way that he treated them. I mean, which was, he loves everybody, but he only loved himself, or he loved himself the most. And so you were good as long as my interests were aligned with yours, but if once they weren't, you don't matter to me.
Alec, you're a broken person. I don't think you're going to lie in bed at night and have people come to you. I don't think that those people matter. And I don't know when that happened, but clearly it happened where you matter more. And I feel bad for you as a result of that. I knew Paul and Maggie. I knew you. A lot of people thought they knew you. Clearly we didn't.
When you heard about Paul and Maggie dying when they were shot, where were you and what did you think when you heard that?
So I was in the bed, and it's weird because my phone goes to do not disturb after 10 o'clock from 10 p.m. to, I don't know, 7 a.m. And that afternoon, about 4, I'd gotten a call. It was a Monday. I'd gotten a call from a guy and said, when Sharon buzzed in my office, says there's somebody on the phone about the beach case. I didn't mean anything then because the world hadn't exploded. And so I talked to this gentleman, and he is incensed by the fact that Paul was driving the boat that weekend in Edisto, and he appeared to be drunk. And, I said, look, that's not really what I do. The AG tried to get some sort of ankle monitoring. If you see him again, take a video of it, send it to me. Here's my cell phone, call law enforcement. It's not a whole lot we can do. I mean, he's under certain restrictions, but that's not one of them. And so when I got the call that night, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, that guy's done something. What did I say to him? And that he's gone and he's done this. And I had his number. I knew who he was, and I passed it on to SLED, and it wasn't him. And they checked that out. And that was, so the first thing that goes through my mind was that, and it was sort of unbelievable, I mean.
Well, you had a hearing in 3 days, right? With the boat crash and Paul, and everything was coming to a head on June 10th.
Right.
And the murders were June 7th.
That's right. And so everything stopped. It all immediately stopped. And because I can still remember Alec calling Paul baby when he's 12 years old, or maybe even a little older than that. And on any given day, I guess anybody can kill their spouse, but they kill their son. And so it's even once it becomes obvious, it's still really difficult to wrap your mind around knowing that dynamic. And I mean, I wholeheartedly, fully believe it now, that that's what happened. And I believed it sometime once all the financial crimes came out. It's just, this is Alec's MO. It's just like with the boat crash. It's just confusion. And here's this obvious answer. I know this has something to do with the boat crash. That's just what he did. And there was a lot of online vitriol towards Paul. I mean, even after he was dead, I still got emails. I'm glad he's dead. And whatever it was he did in his life, and he did a lot of things wrong. He didn't deserve that.
Oh God, no. And it was under the veil of all that alcohol abuse that we heard about, the Timmy and all that, and not making excuses for it, not making any excuses for it, but it was
Well, he's a child.
I mean, we had heard about Paul's alter ego. That started coming out in the weeks after the crash. I think his name was Timmy. When he had too much to drink, the aggression that he would show on multiple occasions after he had too much to drink.
Yeah.
He's a child. And I mean, if from 12 years old and you go, and so that means, earlier I was talking about seeing Paul, I would see Paul at adult functions. And so I think Paul always just wanted to be included and probably just wanted it to feel important. And so the more outlandish, the funnier he was, the more attention he got. And it was a vicious circle. And he was a product of the way he was raised, unfortunately.
I mean, Mark, besides the fact that it's too horrific to even think of a father doing something like this, for you to be in a position that you were in, you were going full charge again, suing the Murdaughs for the beaches at that point. You had to just basically completely put the brakes on and be like, did you say we're going to drop it? What was that phone call like to Alec?
The phone call after the murders.
Yeah.
I think that, I told the beaches that because in a civil case, it has to do with money, right? It's unfortunately, that's all that we can do. We're going to put you in the position you would have been in had this not occurred with money. Can't do it. Nobody willingly takes any amount of money to trade their daughter or suffer some catastrophic injury. It doesn't work that way, but that is the system. And when people sit in judgment in a jury, I mean, there's a lot of emotion in that. And so if you go in with a very nice, sympathetic defendant, and I'm not saying Alec was nice, but he was certainly going to be in a very sympathetic position, which he knew. I mean, he knew that. He knew his daddy was dying. It was going to naturally give him cover and put him in a position of sympathy. And so to use Steele Creighton's analogy, I mean, the storm clouds were all gathering and it had to be then.
And you're going to hear some of what was going on in Alex Murdaugh's life leading up to that day. Stuff that happened that very day, stuff that was leading up, a perfect storm that was gathering, much like the storms that are coming outside today. Listen for that evidence. Listen to that gathering storm that all came to a head on June 7th, 2021, the day the evidence will show he killed Maggie and Paul.
And between the hearing and we now know the Ferris check that the law firm had discovered, and the state grand jury subpoenas that were going to the bank, and everything was coming. It just had to. It had to be this.
Yeah.
Because you don't have any story to sell that it was a vigilante if it's not this. If Alec is the victim of a vigilante, nobody's going to hold him accountable. Doesn't make any difference what he did or how clearly what he did contributed. The case would be over against Alec. And so initially, it could have been over. It appeared that it was going to be over against Alec, right? I mean,
right.
How's he going to explain it out of the gate?
Well, Mark, I mean, it must have been like for you. I would think so many mixed emotions through that whole period. Like you said, I mean, it was not an easy time because you're going full force against the Murdaughs in this lawsuit. Then Paul and Maggie are dead. And then we're dealing with like just the fallout, the emotional fallout. I mean, how are you holding up during that whole period until
Well,
we got to some resolution of, this isn't about you or any of the lawsuits that you're, you know what I mean? Like, how
yeah.
did you handle all that?
Well, the relentlessness of it helped 'cause there's no lull. There's no time to do anything other than, you know, uh, head down, ass up, keep moving straight ahead. I mean, that's all that I could do. And once I realized what he had done and why he had done it, I felt a certain amount of responsibility for that. Cause I mean, I was one of the things that was pushing him. And from where I sat, where I stood, I didn't see anybody standing up for Paul and Maggie. And it just incensed me. And um, I I can't imagine having someone you love killed by someone else that you love. So, I'm not criticizing anybody, but I'm just saying for me, I felt like that it was important for people to understand the why, and you won't ever understand it because he's a sociopath. But there's a certain logic to it, and that was the logic that he used, that this was the only answer, and it wasn't the answer. I mean, I offered him a payment plan. He's actively stealing money. Uh, he's
Right.
got $3.8 million in his pocket, or $2.8 million in his pocket, that he's just stolen from the Satterfield family. He's got the check in his pocket. He could use that money to try to pay it. But not only would he not pay with the money he was actively stealing, and I'm just saying that if you were a thinking person and not a narcissist, you would say, "Oh yeah, let me buy my way out of this
Right.
and end this so that we stop some of this digging." But he wouldn't do it. He was above all that. He wasn't going to be taken to task over anything, and he wasn't going to be held to account for anything in his mind.
It's clear that there's an intent to hide the assets. There's an intent to secret the assets away.
And it's so interesting to me because I also interviewed Dick Harpootlian for this, and he said,
I think Alex Murdaugh is a horrible person for stealing money from people that he represented, who needed the money. I think that, and he admits that. But I don't believe he killed his wife and son.
he's still going for he didn't do it, even though he's in jail or prison forever and ever for what he did do with the financial crimes. Why do you think it's so important that Alec gets his name cleared for Paul and Maggie?
From Alex's perspective,
Mm.
he doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to be known as the person who killed his son. That's it.
Even though he's sitting and rotting away in a prison and no one can hear or speak to him, that's still.
He cared about
But
how
even if you think he did it, like, how can he? It just doesn't make sense, does it?
which part?
Any of it.
No.
But I mean, the part that he's sitting in prison and he is guilty of killing his wife and son, yet he insists that is the charge that's got to be cleared. And it just comes down to ego. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, it was, it's why I was going to say I give. It's why Alec would give to whatever politician. He wanted to be perceived in a certain way, omnipotent, in the know. And so if you go and you look at some of the donations he made, I mean, he'd give to Republicans, he'd give to Democrats. He wanted to always be on the winning side, and his idea of how people perceived him is what mattered. He'd know you, he'd know your name, he'd remember how's your mama doing. He would ask you the things that would make you think that he genuinely cared about you, but he didn't.
It's a talent in South Carolina.
Well,
I've seen it over. I mean, he's not the only one that's got this charisma and this ability to do this, to walk circles around people and keep their attention. But he was a master at it.
Yeah, I think even some of the people he stole from afterwards he was so nice, I guess, and still almost refused to believe that he did it.
When you heard that it was that much money, we're talking millions and millions of dollars that Alec had been squirreling away over all these years, and the people that he had taken the money from, what was your reaction?
Well,
And when did it all come to, like, when did it hit you that this man had been doing this?
October of 2020. No, I'm sorry, not 2020,
I was like, oh my
2021.
God, Mark,
Before the
what
murder.
happened then?
Well, the truth is, but no, so there's a watershed moment where you can see it. You can see all the financial crimes, not every single one of them, but it's very apparent when in October of 2020. And I remember calling the AG's office and saying, "This is why I did it. This is it."
In
And
2021.
yeah, in October of 2021. And I think I don't remember what date Creighton told you that he went, but it's not until 2022. Yeah, it's a circumstantial case. We think so too, but and then and so it just continues to come out more and more and more and more. And I don't at whatever point in time they found the kennel video, but yeah.
Do you think justice has been served for the Beaches? Do you feel like you were able to bring some level of, I hate using the word closure when you lose a child like that, but some sense of, is justice the right word? I don't want to overuse it. But did the Beaches get to a place where they could move forward in their life?
I don't think you ever get to a place where you can move forward. I think that there was a measure of comfort in the fact that knowing she had not died in vain, that her death contributed to helping people and stopping all of the victimization of Alex's clients, the people that he was victimizing and righting a lot of wrongs. And so they take comfort in that. I don't think that any measure of closure, but
No, I don't either. It's the wrong word. Oh, I was going to ask one monetary question with the Beaches. I don't just because it's been a couple years. Did we ever get like the final amount, or did that stay private? Did we ever hear what the final settlement was for the Beaches?
No, I think it's public. I mean, there was it was 15 from Parker's, and then there was I think I'd collected about I want to say $3.5 million from Randolph Murdaugh, from the Island Trust, from Luther's Bar, and the Woods home where, despite what people say, I mean, I sued everybody that was involved, everybody that enabled this.
Yeah.
And so that money was divided, and then we took everything Alec had and we sold that. And so they got money there. I don't know. I mean, it's $19 million or something like that, but
Did Buster, after that, was there any weirdness with the fact that you had to take the money with Buster still being around, or did you have to just compartmentalize again?
well, Buster, I feel for Buster. I told Buster in the courthouse in Colleton that I was there for his mama and his brother.
You did?
And I did. Yeah.
What was that conversation like?
That he just nodded and he didn't really say anything. I feel bad for Buster for those reasons. I mean, Buster shouldn't have. He played a role in Mallory's death, but
yeah, of course.
But I mean, the family really felt like Buster had suffered enough, and so we got Buster out of the lawsuit and agreed to give him some of the money from his mother's estate, and hopefully he can get some measure of closure and move on. I don't know whether he has or he's not.
I wanted to, we're not speaking to the Beaches. I hope that they know that the whole world, stood by him.
I think they do, but I think it's difficult. It's just still, it's sort of the opposite of when I was talking about compartmentalizing, how we we look past certain things. I mean, I think that they can only see what they can see, and they are appreciative of the support that they've gotten, and but yeah, I think they would be content for no more Hulus, no more documentaries, no
Are they
more.
watching any of this
I
stuff?
don't think so.
You watched it though. You got a role in it. How's your character? Did they do you right?
You know, I think it's fine. It's a surreal kind of thing when they invited me over to film what they call an Easter egg, and where
Oh, shoot. Where?
in the watermelon festival scene.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah, you got to know I'm there. It's at the
Okay.
beginning before Alec runs into the starfish or whatever that is he runs into. But there are 300 people on the set, and they're filming this. Ultimately, Alec goes and interacts with my character, but they're filming it to catch me. Alec walks up, he stares over at the Mouse Pals tent. I'm standing there, and then he goes on up, and I walk behind him in the street, still staring at him. And so they shot it 10 or 15 or 20 times. It was a lot.
Yeah, welcome to acting.
Yeah, 300 people out there just to get it right because somebody walked in front of me or somebody.
Yeah.
And
Or
it was
just nervous that it's wrong.
well, it was just a weird feeling, and that to
Oh my gosh. It's
be
surreal.
yeah. It
Creighton said he didn't want to watch it. Well, no, what did he say? Well, he said he didn't want to watch it because he couldn't do a fictionalized version of what he went through. I think it was just too much. But he said,
when I look back on all of this, if I had taken this and decided to fly to LA and pitch this this as a movie or a series or something like that, probably the producers have been like, you need to dial it back a little bit. We're losing our suspension of disbelief at this point.
They've changed their minds now. Yeah.
yeah, I know, right. So how much PTSD do you have from this whole experience?
I don't,
I mean, you sound perfectly healthy. I'm not saying that you
I
don't.
think I'm probably most of the time I'm okay.
Do people come up to you on the street and go, "Hey, Tiger"?
All the time.
Yeah.
In weird places,
Tiger, where did you get that nickname? Was that from this case, or this was before this case, right?
No, that
Tiger
was from this
Tinsley?
case. When Judge Newman said that, I really thought at first that what he was talking about was the fact that I'd made a joke on the stand saying that I carried an orange backpack when I went to Carolina. And so, but yeah, that was the first time I'd heard it,
And now it's stuck.
I guess.
We gotta get T-shirts that say Tiger Tinsley on them.
I think there are some. I don't have one.
Man, I wouldn't want to go up against you in court.
I don't know. You'd be fine.
You crushed it. But
You'd be fine.
Mark, the thing I really respected the whole time was that you kept your cool the whole time. We had a lot of conversations over the years about every nuance, every piece of paper that was coming across my desk as a journalist was something that was coming, that had to be explained. And I appreciate the fact that I could always call you and you'd be like, this is what it means.
Yeah. The thing about it is there are opportunities and where lawyers can try to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. When you're the person telling the story, like the plaintiff, you don't really have that luxury. You don't get to pull the wool over somebody. So everything has to fit. And I think that the frustrating part for a lot of people, and especially journalists like you, is you need to understand in a soundbite what this means. And I can hardly tell you my name in 2 minutes. And so it's a lot more complicated. And then, you pour on top of it a story like this, and it's nothing is what it appears to be for the most part.
No. And the level of lying and the manipulation and the deceit and the power. Were you ever afraid of the Murdaughs? Did you ever think they were going to come after you with a gun?
I made it clear to Alec and then to other people, law enforcement people, if you come to my house, I will assume you're coming for a bad reason. And so I think that they were probably more afraid of me than I was of them. And so I was vigilant.
You were
Right.
vigilant.
I was vigilant. I still am. But so.
Good for you. I
Yeah.
mean, there are a lot of people that still think that Alec didn't do it.
Well, I don't know.
And
There's about 4, but I don't know that there's that many.
I know maybe if you go down the wrong thread, you can get there.
No.
I think it's interesting because this appeal's about to happen. What do you think about the appeal? You think he's going to get this overturned?
No.
No? Not even in federal court?
I mean, I never would have thought that Russell Laffitte gets us a new trial in federal court. So at the Fourth Circuit, I think that the way that it works, seems to me, is that if you have, I use this analogy. I spoke at Clemson recently. Attila the Hun. I'm talking about a different. But if you have a defendant who's Attila the Hun versus Mother Teresa, and I think that the class of college students didn't know who I was talking about when I said that, but there's two different things going on, right? I mean, if Attila the Hun, who's going to spend the rest of his life in jail for these financial crimes, we're going to do what? And I get that there might not be a legal consideration, but it is a practical consideration in my opinion, in terms of how people decide where the line is, or whether we need a do-over. And so I think that cuts against him. I think that you've got 2 incredible jurists in terms of Clifton Newman and Gene Tolan. I mean, so really that it seemed, I know that the brief is long and they're arguing a lot of stuff, but I mean,
Right.
It really just boils down to Becky Hill, right? Did Becky Hill and did Gene Toll use the wrong standard? And I don't see a world in which the court says no, especially, or yes, whichever. But when you have this overwhelming evidence of guilt and all of these things, so I don't think it'll happen. But if it happens, I think that there's evidence out there that the prosecution knows about now, that has a better understanding how to present some of it. I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, I suspect there'll be the same result.
They'd be ready for it. Well, I'm going to let you go, even though I could literally ask you 300,000 more questions. And it's been fascinating, Mark, to just be able to go back through it. I'm kind of glad that we had a year or so to just kind of let the dust settle and think about it. Didn't even go into Becky that much. If stuff happens with Becky, I'm gonna have to call you again.
Okay. Well,
Not have to, want to.
That's fine.
I'm Ann Emerson, and thanks for watching Criminally Obsessed. Don't miss our next episode. We're going to have major developments in the Melody Buzzard missing child case. Click below for the latest Melody Buzzard disappearance updates.